Jim Leahy, the genius, in my opinion, New York baker who devised the no-knead bread method, has just written a new book, and in that he is showing how to make a no-knead pizza dough. And if it's anywhere near as good as the no-knead bread, it's going to be a wonderful pizza dough, so I just have to try it. It starts off basically like the no-knead bread does. I haven't mixed it yet, but I think the mix will be a little drier. Anyway, in this bowl I have 500 grams of all-purpose flour, and I will put a link down below, and the link below to the recipe will give you the cups, dry measure. I prefer to use weight, as you probably know by now. You get the more consistent product every time if you weigh it. So anyway, it's 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of, I'm using the instant yeast, and 2 teaspoons of sea salt. To that you add, after I get it mixed together here, I'm going to blend everything in together. To that you add 350 grams of water. And you mix thoroughly. I'll do it in a moment if I think it's any drier than the no-knead bread. I actually have a no-knead loaf that's in its final rise now. Will be going in the oven in a couple of hours, so I'll be able to compare this to what I just did, I guess. And once it mixed thoroughly, he says, which you're not kneading, but you are mixing it thoroughly, so I don't know, I guess I wouldn't call that any drier. Of course, it may be drier in a bit of time here. The flour hasn't absorbed all the water yet, so that may make it turn a bit on the drier side. Let me get that off the spoon here. That is as simple as the no-knead bread recipe is. That's about what it takes to get started on the no-knead bread recipe. And that gets covered and stays at room temperature for at least 18 hours, but depending on the temperature of your room, I guess. There, he's saying 72 degrees. And don't keep my house at 72 degrees, so mine may be 20 hours or longer. But until it is doubled in bulk and is really quite bubbly and whatever. That will be tomorrow. We'll come back tomorrow and finish our no-knead pizza. Well, I thought I would show you that no-knead loaf that I was talking about a little while ago. The dough for the pizza is just sitting here. It hasn't done anything yet, but it's only been a few hours. But that is a no-knead loaf of bread done with Mr. Leahy's method. Unfortunately, I can't cut it. I've been invited to a brunch tomorrow and asked to bring bread, so I won't be cutting it until I get ready to go to the brunch in the morning, I guess. Hours. My dough has been rising, but 20 hours plus, maybe 22, 23 hours, something like that. And I'm saying that it's ready. I'm not sure how much flour to put down, but this is still quite a wet dough, and you're going to want to get it a little less wet, I guess. The oven, my gas is a gas oven, and that's what, if you get on the website and look here, that's what they're calling for. I guess they give instructions for using an electric oven too, but right now my oven is preheating to 500 degrees. And then, when this goes in the oven, it's going to be under the broiler, gas broiler. The pizza pan should be about 8 inches from the gas broiler. So definitely a different method than I've ever done before. Well, I did the exact measurements by weight that they called for, so I must be somewhere as close to the dough that they want. It's always going to be wet inside, and you don't want to completely get rid of these bubbles. You don't know if that's still too wet or not. Anyway, at this point it gets divided into 4 pieces, roughly. I'm not going to do my OCD thing and get the scales out. I'm just going to divide it into 4 pieces. Definitely going to need more flour at this point, aren't I? I say, it's wetter than I thought it would be. And each piece, once you've got it so it isn't so tacky, it says to bring it over from one side and over to the other side, and this over and this over. If you could see what I did there, it sort of folds it over 4 times and roll it around in the flour. I'll do that for each of the 4 pieces if I can find flour enough here in the house. Okay, that's a little better, I guess. I'm only going to be using one of them today. They can be refrigerated for, I think it says up to a week, but you can go check the link out below here. And I also read on the website that it freezes well, so you know, here's a smaller one. I should have done my weighing thing. Okay. Well, I will get my peel out and we'll make a pizza. Okay, so full disclosure, this is day 2 and pizza number 2. Either the weights that they have in the recipe online are not correct, or I misweighed something because the dough was far too wet. This is the same dough, but I have taken the second piece of it and I kneaded some more flour into it. And I think it's more like what you were supposed to be getting. It's soft and it's stretchable, and the pizza that I made yesterday out of the piece of wet dough, it tasted good. It had a good flavor to it, but it didn't cook all the way through. It was raw in the middle. I don't know. I think that was because it was too wet. I'm not sure. I'd keep this so it will slide off the peel onto the baking stone. I don't know if I mentioned already or not, but if I did, I'll mention it again. The instructions are to put your pizza stone 8 inches below the broiler in a gas oven, and turn the oven on, not the broiler, at 500 degrees, and run the oven at 500 degrees for 30 minutes. Then shut the oven off and turn the broiler on and run it under the broiler with the broiler going at full tilt for 10 minutes before you put this on, and you cook it under the broiler, which sort of worked last night, but I don't know, maybe I didn't leave the oven going long enough, get the stone hot enough, whatever. The crust was not cooked the whole way through. The part on the outside that was cooked was very tasty, but it wasn't. The rest of it wasn't cooked the whole way through. And I'm just making a vegetarian pizza here. I've got just 2 or 3 different kinds of vegetables that I'm going to put on it, and some cheese. These are tomatoes, those sort of black tomatoes. I can never remember what they call them, but the closest thing you can get around here to a good ripe tomato in winter. And a bit of green pepper. Hope to get a shot of this going in the oven this time. I didn't get that yesterday. Didn't make any difference because you didn't see yesterday's video anyway. I'm hoping this will work better. Certainly the dough is much better. I went back online to where I got the recipe, and they have a slideshow. I watched the slideshow, and definitely they weren't working with a dough that's as wet as the one that I was working with. Well, a few more minutes. When the broiler has been going for 10 minutes, we'll slide this in the oven, and it only cooks for 3.5 to 4 minutes under the broiler. So fingers crossed that we get a better result. We'll see what happens 4 minutes from now. Well, there it is, just back out of the oven, but I like to wait a few minutes before I cut it, so let it cool just a bit. Hoping for a crust that's cooked this time. Well, here goes nothing. And looking at the crust is actually cooked. Very good. Probably should have let it cool just a bit more, but second time conquered, I guess. It's a nice chewy crust, a bit crisp on the outside. Not so sure that I would go through all of the procedure of heating the stone and then doing it with the broiler anymore. My broiler seems to turn itself off occasionally for some reason too. It must have a certain temperature. When it reaches in the oven, it turns itself back off again. Instead of 4 minutes, this was in for close to 6 minutes. However, the crust is well worth making. I think I would just do it in the 500 degree on the pizza stone from now on. 500 degree oven. That shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 minutes either, I wouldn't think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and if you have never tried a no-knead pizza dough, I think it's worth trying.